Jennie Joseph presents The Hands That Caught Us, a legacy podcast series with our midwife elders, an archival offering through the Perinatal Pause Podcast with Jennie Joseph, where we rest, reclaim, and remember one story at a time. Welcome to The Hands That Caught Us, a sacred series within the Perinatal Pause Podcast with Jennie Joseph. In each episode, we sit in reverence with our elder midwives, keepers of ancestral knowledge, community healers, and witnesses to the sacred continuum of life. These conversations are a pause, a restoration, and a reclaiming of our birthright. These are the stories that built us, and these are the stories that sustain us.
Wow, today it's my honor and just my heartfelt joy to be with my sister, Okunsola Amadou. I'm so grateful for her, and not only in my life, but in all the lives that she has touched, in all the ways she shows up for all of us all the time. I invited her here today to help us remember and discover and rediscover some of our most precious ancestor midwives. And she said yes. Okunsola, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Mama Jennie. I just want to thank you and just really honor you in this moment. You have just been such a light and a support and a rock, not only for me, but so many women wanting to become midwives. And so first, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here on your beautiful podcast that is just planting seeds of wisdom and inspiration to everyone who's listening. But I also just want to say, I don't know if you remember, but I was a baby student midwife in 2015. I remember standing in my bedroom, so excited because I got a phone call back from you. I think I reached out to you or something, yeah, wanting to be a student or something. And you told me, you said, you got to start thinking like a CEO. You got to start, you were helping me to get my leadership hat on because I was running away from it. I was just like,
Mhm.
I just want to be a midwife. And the wisdom and the courage and the affirmations that you sowed into me all those years ago really was a great foundation for me. Never giving up. I would have known what it would have took for me to get here today. And I just want to thank you for those words and encouraging me to put my big girl pants on and get out there and lead and do it. And I did it. So thank you.
You really did. And I remember it. Oh, yeah, I remember it. And I just feel like it's so relevant. Look where you are now. Look what you're doing now. Share a little bit about your museum, your center, what you have manifested. Tell us.
Absolutely. Well, I consider myself the midwifery folklorist. And since I got onto the path of midwifery, I was more intrigued by the wisdom, the old ancient ancestral ways, and I just couldn't get away from it. It was so much more than rubbing bellies or catching babies or calling myself a midwife. It was really being with the earth and being with women. But I knew from my experiences in the hospital and even having experiences with midwives in my third birth that what I wanted to learn could not be provided in America. So I did travel to Africa. I started my
Mhm.
studies in Africa because I said, I don't want to start in America and learn fractured. And so it was in Ghana. I work with water energy, ocean energy, which really
Mhm.
relates to us as women. So I was praying to Mommy Wata and Yemo Ya, singing at the sea. And it was my last day in Ghana during my stay that I received a vision to create Jama Birth Village. Now,
Mhm.
when I was in Africa, I just thought I was just going to be this little fuzzy home birth midwife. And that vision that came, this was September of 2013. It showed me this a village of people walking, a space where you could receive care, you can read, you could get herbs. There were spaces where, images were portrayed of and stories were portrayed of midwives who had done it before. And so I was just like, wow, I want to create that here. But the creator said, no, you will not act like the colonizers and leave your community and go and just give a community something that you think should be there. And it was very clear, go back home and create this for your people. So defiantly, I listened because I wanted to live in Africa. But what I have created and manifested over the years, Mama Jenny, was that village that was in my vision. So I came back to America. It took me a couple years, but in 2015, finally got accepted to midwifery school. Started to campaign to raise money to pay for my midwifery school. But at the same time, I was accepted into the Midwives College of Utah in August, and I founded Jama Birth Village out of my living room with a small group of Black community doulas. Because when I first came back, it was less than 5 Black practicing doulas in the St. Louis region. And there were a few up and coming ones who had just gone through training or were going through training. So we formed, started Jama, and Jama grew exponentially. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine being a brand new baby student midwife while also running a not-for-profit for the first
Right,
time. And I'm
right.
also, yeah, like, wow. And I'm also a mom to 3 young sons, and so with that being said, Jemai outgrew my home, but that was a very fuzzy time because moms
Mm-hmm.
would knock on my door, I would bake muffins, and I was a student midwife, so I provided care out of my home under my preceptors. And then Jemai grew into its own storefront brick and mortar where we provided childbirth education. We did St. Louis's first Black-led doula training, and I kept providing clinical care as I went through my preceptorship. And then, boom, it happened. In 2018, people finally realized that I wasn't just the young, crazy, hopeful person talking about Black midwives and doulas as a solution, and people started to invest into Jama. So
Yeah.
we were able to purchase a 4,000 square foot medical facility, which you've had the honor of visiting.
I loved it too from the minute I set foot. The most
Yes.
amazing space.
It's amazing because,
Mm.
we started meeting in the library across the street from the building that we purchased. And then we started in my home, moved to our first storefront, and then we did a campaign 60K in 60 days to raise the money to purchase the building after the owner said he would put up 125K to get it. We got the building, we fundraised in the height of COVID in 2020. To we did an adopt a room campaign so that people could help us to buy furniture and medical equipment, and we were successful.
Yeah.
Every room was adopted.
Mm.
So on Juneteenth, um, well, I skipped a little bit. 2018, we did the capital campaign. 2019, I became Missouri's first Black certified professional midwife, and then in on Juneteenth of 2020, we opened Missouri's first Black midwifery clinic. So I will say that to say that by the time 2020 got here, I'm 5 years strong into my not-for-profit work and to being a community midwife. And I knew I had to create a plan where Jama could thrive and continue and live past me. So I spent the next 5 years up until last year planning my succession and Jama's strategy to continue. And over the years, Jama is its own spirit. Jama is
Mhm. Mhm.
its own person. But over the years, Jama revealed to me how important cultural heritage preservation was, primarily because we've witnessed racism and patriarchy take so much from women, Black women, and almost erasure of midwives. And then here we are working hard to put it back in the community. And then it's being taken again by those systems again. And
Mhm.
so that's when I love the midwives. I'm sorry, I love museums. I do love midwives, but I'm in love with museums and I'm in love
Yeah.
with libraries and books. And that's when it was placed on my heart that the completion of that village dream was for us to have a learning institution, a research institution where we learn through our own lens. Um,
Mhm.
where we had a museum where we could have our
Yes.
exhibits to display our work, and then so that we could have a school so that we can honor the people who want to be traditional midwives. Some people want to be nurse midwives or CPMs, but there's some people who want to
That's right.
train in a lineage-based way. So during Jemi's 10-year anniversary last year, and during the time that I was planning my retirement, I'm now founder in residence, and I'm in a transition year to help the new team to keep Jemi thriving and going. But October of last year, we celebrated 10 years, and we revealed to the world the African Indigenous Midwifery Museum. We call it the Black Midwifery Museum for short. And it's our world's first brick and mortar museum dedicated to midwifery and just Black midwifery. You have exhibits here or there at other places, but not one place that houses it all. And
Say the name again. Say the name again.
yes, the African Indigenous Midwifery Museum. Yes, and so we
And
can.
where is it too? You have to
Yes,
point that out.
thank you so much. So, the African Indigenous Midwifery Museum and its partner, which is the African Indigenous Midwifery Library and Research Institute, they are both housed within the historic Jemima Birth Village Cultural Heritage Center in Ferguson, Missouri. So, we're located within the St. Louis metropolitan area. And so, our museum is open Wednesday through Saturday from 10 to 4. You can become a member. It's
Mm.
free for kiddos. And to go and sit in the library and read midwifery books all day, it's no cost. So that's what I've been able to manifest in short, because it's a lot.
That I mean, I know you abbreviated it. That's what makes it even more spectacular. Um, it moves me to a point, I can barely just articulate any words. And I think as folk have listened to you just share that very teeny tiny piece of the brilliance that you are, that you people will understand why I asked you to help me do this part. Because this part of our series, our The Hands That Caught Us series, the podcast was focused on the Black midwifery elders. We had made connections and community over the years, and were meeting regularly and sharing and supporting and holding each other up, and realized, hang on a second, we do have a need to get our stories out there. And we also need for each other, and for our lines to have documentation.
Mhm.
We were here. We're
Yes,
still here. Our eldest, Salama, currently 82 years old.
yes.
We wanted to make sure we could document our stories. And so I've asked you here specifically to help me, because I know I can't do it, to help share some of the stories of our precious elder sisters, um, and ancestors, our queen mothers
Yes.
today.
Absolutely. I'm honored to. And one of the gifts that I walk with is that I really love honoring our ancestors, our elders while they're here, but especially our ancestors. And so I did decide, even though I have a gift as a writer and an author and a teacher, that I didn't just want to enter into the space of archiving their stories without first being trained to do it in a respectable way. So I went back to school and I graduated from the Museum Studies program at the University of Iowa. And while getting my certificate through U of Iowa, I interned at the Missouri Historical Society,
Mhm.
and I led a midwifery project because at that point there was no ledger or record of all the midwives that had practiced that were known in the history of Missouri. So I led that. I did my first exhibit at the Missouri Historical Society, and then I said, you know what? Not only yes, I can do this, but I am going to do this. So while I was interning and in school, I started my first project as a midwifery folklorist, and it's called the Black Midwife Oracle. And
Yes, it is.
so I love it. My favorite color is purple, of course. But the Black Midwife Oracle was essentially a 2-year project where I worked alongside a good friend of mine who's been doing art for me for the past 12 years. I dream up the art and she draws it and brings it to life. And for months, I would receive these recurring dreams, or even in liminal spaces, I'm getting ready to go to sleep, and I would hear a name whispered in my ear. Some of them I recognized, and some of them didn't. So when I started to keep track and journal, and I'm looking at these dreams I'm having or the names that are being whispered to me, I was like, these are all midwives. And sometimes I was like, well, I didn't know about this midwife. Why didn't I know about her? So then I was just like praying, like, Creator, okay, what does this mean? And then it was just clear to me, like, we need their stories to be told. And I said, okay, and how? And so it really came to me that the Black Midwife Oracle was more than just having an archival book, which is what I've been able to create, but also creating cards that actually depicted our beautiful midwives as the oracles that they were. So many of them walked with wisdom for not only the families that they served, but for future midwives coming. So, what I did was I embarked on a journey. I traveled across the United States and also across some countries in Africa, Ghana, South Africa, started in the Gullah Geechee corridor. And I visited, I know, right? I know you're like, how did you do this? I visited some of the homes of the midwives. Sometimes their houses weren't standing, but the lots were there. Sometimes the house was rebuilt and someone was living there. Um, but the thing that I enjoyed the most was I was able to locate where some of them were buried. Some of them didn't have proper headstones. Some of them you could tell they had never received flowers. So every time I'd go get my little car on my journey, I always had flowers in the back of my car because I didn't just want to go. I'm getting chills. But I didn't just want to go and take their stories and sell them in a book. It's so much more than that. And so I would go and I would sit with them. So some of those pictures are in the book of me sitting with them, cleaning their gravesite, leaving flowers for them, going to museums, going to the homes of family members, calling on the phone and saying, hey, do you mind helping me to keep their stories alive? So the last thing that I'll say before we dive into some of the midwives featured in the Black Midwife Oracle is that a lot of the midwife stories weren't told in fullness, whether because they weren't documented or because they were quote unquote forgotten. But a lot of midwives are pretty humble. Our elder midwives. And they was, no, no, don't thank me. Don't pay me. It's the Lord's work. It's God's work. It's not me. So they were so humble, but they did so much. So the Black Midwife Oracle comes with an archival book, which is almost 350 pages of information with 28 deep biographies on the midwives, and also just some information on the history of midwifery. And it also comes with the journal. And the journal is a gift and an invitation for people who purchase the book to start their own journaling archival practice. And the goal is that you journal about what comes to you after you pick one of the oracle cards. So the cards come in this cute little box, and this is the back of the cards, and they intentionally list all of the elements. But once you pick an oracle card, you can go either inside of the archival book or inside of the guidebook, and you look up what that oracle card means. And then you journal about, this is what came to me. This is what this means for me. There's also ceremonies and rituals that you could utilize that may have been a part of the culture that the midwife was a part of. But the goal is to not just keep that notebook to yourself. It's to pass it on to your child, or if you feel safe, pass it on to a mentee, This
Yes.
way, our archives and stories are not lost.
Whew.
Yes.
This is why we take that perinatal pause.
Yes, ma'am.
This is why we need the time and the space to slow down enough to be present.
Yes, ma'am. They have so much to say. There's so much wisdom that should not be left in the wind. And I think this is a small way to make sure that we keep their wisdom alive every step that we take and honor what they were able to do while they were here. And so I would love to talk a little bit about five of the midwives that
Mhm.
I've pulled from the cards that are midwives that have lived within, the past century, mostly within the past, 30 or 40 years.
Yes.
And I just want to share a little bit about each of them and then invite everybody to continue to learn and honor and uplift these midwives.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So
Mm.
I want to highlight that so each oracle card has the name of the midwife at the bottom, and then it also has where either they lived predominantly or where they were born. So we're starting with midwife Afua or Mama Afua out of Houston, Texas. And I know this may get a little heavy, Mama Jenny, because many of the midwives we're going to talk about we both knew or have
Yes.
experienced life with. But I
Yes.
just want to pause before I read anything to ask you, do you have a memory of Mama Afua or anything that you want to share?
Absolutely. I had the tightest, warmest squeeze hug the first time I met her, and I knew about her and had heard about her so many years. And I did get to meet her in person, and she just almost squeezed the life out of me, but I felt every single piece of it. And that was the most memorable thing for me, just being in her presence.
Absolutely. She was a burst of fresh energy. And my memory, thank you for sharing that, Mama Jenny. And that just really reflects her personality. My memory with her was I was standing on my front porch when I was a student midwife, and I was calling around as always, seeing who could take me as a student. And I called Mama Afua. And she was just laughing and she said, "You know what? I don't really take many students nowadays because y'all students don't know how to act." She was, she said she would add me to her waiting list, and that was the first time that I talked to her. And I
Mhm.
used to watch her lives. That she used to love doing her live videos on Facebook.
Yes, she
Yes.
did.
Yeah, so the name of Mama Afua ran a birthing center out of her home in Houston, Texas. And so she lived on the upper levels of her home and her birthing center was at the bottom levels. So she was born March 27th of 1959 and she passed away April 4th of 2021. And I have a saying by Mama Afua that's here in the guide that says, all women should have the birth they want. The mom is the captain, and the dad is the co captain, and I am the advisor. And that was her wisdom of saying, in
Yes.
the hierarchy of childbirth, they're running the show, and I'm just here to advise. And so I have a oracle wisdom message from Mama Afua. And what that means is that when I went to visit the midwives or when I was sitting down and writing about them or looking at their art, this is either a message that came to me or it was invoked by something that I read. So Mama Afua's oracle wisdom says, I want you to know that you matter. That you matter just as much to yourself as you make others matter in your life. From your partner, children, friends, and or clients. The love, availability, and constant care you give to them, give it to yourself times 10. From now on, from now on, you're only allowed to do for others after you've first taken care of you. This is not selfish. Don't think that. A life of service to other is a life of service to yourself. A servant leader knows how to lead themselves first before other. So this oracle guides you to self-preservation, self-sacred admiration, and deep restorative care, which all counteract the chronic epidemic of sleep deprivation, burnout, and exhaustion amongst Black mothers, midwives, and birth workers. We need you here full, deeply cared for within, rested and joyful genuinely. Be with yourself. Truly, it's medicine. And so I was in North Texas when that oracle message came to me.
Yeah.
So this message from
Mhm.
Mama's a full well this the oracle message also is followed by some affirmations. And one of the things that I love about Mama Afua's story is full of resilience.
Yes.
Um, Her story is a little funny because she talks about how she was in school in college, and she was studying for the degree that she was interested in, but then she felt called to wanting to become a midwife after overhearing a conversation on her college campus. So, first she was considering obstetrics, and then she found out about midwifery, and then her mind was blown. And
Mhm.
so she starts calling around, kind of like my story, and she starts calling around, do you know a midwife? Do you know a midwife? How can I find a midwife? And then she ends up going to Atlanta for a
Right.
conference. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
She
Yep.
goes to Atlanta for a conference, and then she runs into a midwife crew who really took her under her arm. And they ended up riding together as she was taking one of the midwives home. And she attended a birth with that midwife, and she continued on her journey. And it really wasn't easy for her. She had a lot of twists and turns, but one thing is for sure, she had quite a few Black midwives that trained her and
Mhm.
that, kept her under her wing. And so when she started the birthing center, it was something that was a first in her community. And she did experience quite a few challenges in her life, but she never gave up. And
Right.
so I'm admired by her story, that she fought, so hard to find those midwives, and then happened to go to this conference and found them, and they led her on her journey to
Mhm.
serving her community. So she's a treasure. She's an absolute treasure.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yes. And so I want to shift into uplifting another one of the midwives from the Oracle. And I want to share her picture now. This is Gladys Nichols Milton, and she is from Florida, Caney Creek,
Yeah.
Florida. And this is an image of her. And I want to pause because you're in Florida, and I want to pause just to check in with you on if you have any stories of memories of Mama Gladys.
I do. I do. Whew. I met her and I immediately felt from her, and Maria was with her too. So I met them both, mother and daughter. And I felt from them both because I was so fledgling at that point. It was mid 1990s. And actually, I was at a conference, one of the first times I'd been to a conference of midwives, and she was there, Maria was there. And I knew as soon as I got into her presence, there was that thing. It's almost, I don't know how to name it, but the spiritual thing, right? And we have a picture, and I cherish that picture. I've got my little, no dreadlocks, nothing, just my, little shortcut and my, little youthful grin. I couldn't believe I was so blessed to be in her presence. But what was really important was she had set the pace. She was one of the last of the original midwives who were trained in Florida as a direct entry midwife. She had a birth center. She had a Black-owned birth center and run her birth center. Maria had also trained as a midwife and run the birth center alongside her. I was inspired to hold on with my goal to get to where I was trying to get to. I was able to open and work alongside of another colleague midwife to start midwifery training at a massage therapy school. We were to the point where we were getting our MEEC accreditation. This was in the mid 90s to like 2000s. But in the I think it's 1999, we had the MEEC inspection, which is the accreditation body for midwifery schools. They were in the house doing the accreditation when I got the phone call that Gladys had transitioned. And that has always been such a significant moment for me because not long after that, we failed that accreditation. I closed that school, but I reopened a school in 2010, and the rest is history. But Gladys passed the day we were doing the accreditation site visit. And Maria continues to this day to hold that birth center in the north of Florida. Her mother's birth center, the legacy continues on through Maria and Gladys.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing it. And I want to honor you because I felt the emotion moving through because you're sharing how you were on your journey and useful, you know, in working towards your accreditation and doing what you needed to do, and how she was this inspiration. And even in her passing, her signifying like her blessings on your day, you know. And what I love about Mama Gladys's story is I want to find the right word for her because I don't think warrior is the right word, but man, she did not give up.
Warrior
She's
is the
a
word.
warrior. Was she's
Yes.
a yes, yes,
Yes. Oh, yes. No, that's a word. That's the right one.
yes. And so what I remember about her story, first I'll just share like just the more simple biography information, but she was born May 26, 1924 and passed away June 17th of 1999. For those who want to celebrate her birthday or honor her birthday, that's May 26th. And so she had a saying, she wrote a book called Why Not Me? And there's a saying in her book that says, "Why not me? If I don't stand up and fight for what's right, who will? Success comes in cans, failures comes in can'ts. Failure isn't falling down, it's staying there." And reading her story and helping to write a little bit of the biography, I learned how she was actually trained by a local white physician that she had grown to trust.
Yeah.
And this is, how she continued to provide midwifery care out of her home. And she experienced a couple of tragedies in her life with the loss of her children through, just unfortunate accidents, but she never allowed that to stop her. But she was so raw in talking about how her heart ached, how her heart was so broken. But one of her daughters that passed used to go along to births with her, ride in the car with her, and be her confidant. So she wanted to continue that on. But the thing is that she was so popular amongst all mothers, no matter what their race was, and they trusted her. And she would make them tea. She talked about making them tea. She kept a Bible on the nightstand. So she talked about a lot of those different things. But also, she highlighted that when legislation and policies and credentialing started to come in, these very providers who used to praise her, send clients to her, train her, started to turn on her. And they started to block her needing to renew her license to practice. She has been a victim of arson multiple times where her birth center unfortunately was targeted and she had to rebuild. So that's the type of a warriorship because she faced them. She went to court. She
Yes.
went to court.
She,
She faced them. Yes.
she's currently She was inducted into the Florida Women's Hall of Fame,
Mhm.
and that is an accolade that, especially given those circumstances and all that she endured, so well deserved.
Absolutely. And so I'm happy to hear that Maria continues on with the
Yes.
work and keeps her uplifted. So I always think about her that when those obstacles come, when you're doing the right thing, to not
Mm.
give up.
Hmm.
And so we have two more midwives that I really want to just uplift today. Next, we have Grand Midwife Nazara Smith, or we call her Mama Nazara. And Mama
Mm.
Nazara, her image has sunflowers all around her because she was the priestess of Oshun. And Oshun essentially is a Orisha and the Asheshe. Yoruba tradition that really centers around sweetness and fertility and beauty and honoring mothers. And that's really who Mama Nazra is. So I want to pause again to hear if you had any stories or anything to share about the beautiful Mama Nazra.
There is that, the beauty, the absolute, I mean, just gorgeous, just the smile. I mean, everything about that woman just exuded so much purity and just
Yes,
I mean, beauty is the word. Beauty.
absolutely. She loved
Spirit
her
as well
hair.
as physical, right? Like
Yes.
internal, external, everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. She had these really long locks. She loved to
Hmm.
beautify her locks. And even though she was born in the East Coast, she spent a lot of her life and she became a midwife in Georgia. So she was born April 17th, 1949, and she passed June 8th of 2022. And I have a saying here by Mama Nazra that says, I come from the old school. The old school only means the traditions that we come with. It's just spirit. So,
Hmm.
and so my memory of Mama Nazra, then I'll just speak a little bit briefly about her journey, is that I went to the Alabama Black Midwives Conference in 2022. And so I'm in all white, I'm within my first year of initiation, and I'm also initiated into a water deity, Olukun and Yemoya and Mami Wata. So those water deities that are sisters to Oshun. So when she saw me with my beads, she immediately recognized me and she hugged me so tight. And Mama Nazra, she's a little short.
Yeah, she's little.
She hugged me so tight. And as an elder, it meant so much to me. She looked me in my eyes and she said, I want you to teach me what you know. And you think as a young midwife, that what can I teach an elder? And, she talked so much
Mhm.
about how she was trained in traditional midwifery and what it meant to her, and how her and Mama Sarai used to roll together and do their births back in the day and help each other out. But
Mhm.
she did also acknowledge that the spiritual parts of midwifery were missing and were not available to everyone. So we made plans for me to come down to Georgia and to sit with them and to talk with them about the Orishas and spiritual midwifery. And unfortunately, that time did not come because I think it was a month. I believe the conference was it was in May, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
And
And within a couple of weeks after the conference, she
yes,
was
yes.
ill and it was very quick.
It was. And I think the good thing to know is that Mama Nazra was so loved, but she, always put people first. But in
Yes.
her last few days, she went to an Erica Badu concert. She received tickets and went with Mama Sarad and a few of her midwife friends. She just called out to rest. She just kept saying, I want to rest, I want to rest, I want to sleep. And so she was able to experience that. But if you read her story is so beautiful because it talks about how she found her calling to midwifery, where she
Mhm.
just, happenstance and into birth and continued. and how Mama Saran found her and became her student, and how they became duos, and how both of them together sat at the feet of some of the last midwives, a part of past uh,
Mhm.
that past generation. And so her story is full of a lot of love, some ups and downs as we all would face, but there's so much rich wisdom in her story. And
Yeah.
so that's Mama Nazra, our own Oshun priestess, who really just touched the lives of a lot of people. One thing that I think I want to say lastly is how she really loved nature and getting moms in nature. So she started this hiking group with Mama Saran, and it was a
Mm.
way for them to get people outside and get into their bodies. So she was just a sweet elder, and her story is really beautiful. I would like to do Nana Kaleko, and am I saying her name right, Mama Jenny?
Non-Kulaleko.
Nan Kululeko.
There you go. Hmm.
Yes, Nan Kululeko. Okay, let me go to her.
I got my tissue as well. I'm ready.
I know, because I was trying to figure out if I should do Mama Claudia right before her, and I said maybe we should wrap off with her because her, day is coming up, but I
Yeah.
want to honor you and, do it the right way. So, all right. So, I was really, really honored to honor Nankululeko, Queen Mother Nankululeko, who she was just very, very well known as a Queen Mother. And uh, she lived in New York, Harlem, New York. And she was born July 9th of 1942, and she passed March 22nd of 2021. And I have a saying here about her that actually comes from Common Sense Childbirth. That comes from your words, Mama Jenny, about her. And it says, her legacy extends internationally as a midwife to women in communities all over the world, from the Navajo and Hopi of Tuba City, Arizona, to the Garifuna midwives of Honduras, to the beautiful women of Somaliland and beyond. And I think that statement is so powerful about her, that she didn't just do midwifery in her community. She went around the world working with midwives and providing care. And then she brought that richness right back to New York and across the nation. And the first time I met her was at the last ICTC conference
Oh, yeah.
in Portland, Oregon in 2015, and it was a divine blessing. And so I want to pause and make space for you to share any beautiful memories about Nan Kululeko
You know,
Tahimba. Let me say her last name, Tahimba. Yes.
yes. Oh, wow. I was introduced to her through that classic, our iconic film, Bringing in the Spirit, the
Yes.
film that for decades now, we began to be able to gather and watch that film together through the ICTC conferences, the International Center for Traditional Childbearing that Shafia Monroe formed and ran for all those years. That film brought us all together and had us see how we have come on through the years, the centuries, under the tutelage, the growth, and the development of the ancestor midwives, the enslaved midwives, the midwives through Jim Crow. And Nonkululeko was in the film. And in those early days, I was still in that like wide-eyed, incredulous space because she was practicing in the hospital. She was in the labor and delivery, and yet she was the most spiritual and traditional. And it just oozed out of that film. The images, the power, the strength, and the beauty of what she was doing. And it gave me hope that you could do the similar things inside of an institution, even though that seems like a total oxymoron, an anathema to
Mhm.
anything to do with midwifery. but
Yeah.
she showed through that movie, she gave that masterclass for all of us to see and gave us another pathway that we could indeed hold tight with the traditional values, the spiritual values, as well as work inside of these institutions. And her organizing spirit, her advocacy, her community fight, her community drive.
Yes.
It was literal, anything and anytime I was around her, near her, it was a literal masterclass every single time. And encased in love, just such a beautiful person.
Yes, absolutely. And the memories I have from her really just, it reminds me of like your grandma from the South who just has seasoning in everything that they say and do. You know,
Yes,
that's
yes.
that's the feeling that I get from her. And one of my favorite images of her, she was actually teaching, this is her card here. And I really wanted an opportunity to uplift her card because here she is holding a torch, a flame, a fire, and there's this beautiful golden and red horizon behind her because that's what she walked with. She walked with this fire and power that somehow she could, see who you are and see what you needed and share that wisdom with you to activate you. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's this picture of her, one of the pictures here, she's leading the youth of Harlem in a protest for better care for mothers. So she has little people
That's right.
protesting with their with signs, and it says, "Support and love a pregnant woman. Pregnant women need extra care," and it's just so adorable. And she was considered an educator and an activist. And there are also images of her teaching a reproductive health class where there
Mhm.
are both men and women present.
That's
So
right.
for a long time, she's been inviting fathers into the room and the space. So I do want to share one message that I received while working with her during this oracle. And so this is a message from Mama Nankululeko Tahimba. Listen to the stories of women from your lineage and follow the thread back to you. What are some traits that you should be grateful for from your ancestors? What are some traits that you want to release and not pass down to your generation? This oracle calls you to lean deeply into your lineage. It's okay to honor ancestors who don't belong to your family, but not before honoring your own. And so when I was thinking about that, I think about how rightfully so we honor a lot of the midwives who have come before us and passed on. But many of us may have healers and midwives in our own lineage and family.
That's
And so when this card comes up, because she traveled across the world to learn, it reminds me to remind people to find the midwives and healers in your lineage. And
mm,
so we are moving into the biggest, baddest, fiercest, most brilliant, I mean, change maker, fiery midwife that I have ever met, the Mama Claudia Booker. And she is here in
yes.
the Black Midwife Oracle. Her favorite color was blue. So she has this long blue garmented gown and she's holding a baby close to her heart, smiling. And in the back here, you see the scales because she was a judge
Yes.
before she became a midwife. And she brought justice to the birth scene. So I'm going to stop and pause, Mama Jenny, because I know she was your dear, dear friend.
Yes. So it's it's still hard to believe that Claudia has moved on, but Claudia, she and everybody who knew Claudia knows exactly what I'm talking about. She was a force.
She was.
She was fire. She was power. She was everything, everything. And um, you could say gone too soon. And at the same time, she packed so much in.
Oh,
She did so many lifetimes all at once.
hmm.
And she left all of us so deeply changed because she lived.
She did.
She lived all the way to the very end. She lived. She was still cutting up and being Claudia down to
Cutting
the
up.
wire.
Yes.
And yeah. Yeah, I miss her so. I do. I truly miss her so.
Oh, I'm
Whew.
so I love hearing you talk about her, but it's like as soon as you started talking, we are still grieving. And of course, we're sad that Mama Claudia has passed on. But at the same time, when we speak her name, we smile
You can't
because
help it.
because of the joy and the laughter and the no BS look that she will give you. What
Right?
what better way to be a midwife than to have come by way of being a judge? And her father was a pediatrician
Yes. Yes.
also. And so, but she did bring justice into the birthing space. There are so many powerful stories here in the book. I want to give her honor by first stating her date of birth and
Yes.
her passing day. So she was born in Washington, D.C., November 5th of 1949 and passed February 19th of 2020. So as we are recording this, we are on the eve of her anniversary, on the sixth anniversary of her passing. And she had a saying that says, give your, she says, give your heart to strangers and give it in such a way that only joy comes back. And here in the book, her daughter, her amazing daughter, um, blessed me by working with me to help to tell her story and share some images when she was a small girl. But Azulai shared that. And
Mm.
so one a couple things about Mama Claudia that has touched my life is she was present for me when I was a student midwife and I struggled and went through a lot of bias and racism and trauma. And I actually had to move to Virginia to finish school because of what
Mm.
I was facing in my own state. And so she was in DC, a short drive over, and she was like, if you need to come over here and pick me up and get me, she was always there to like ride and give me
Yes.
inspiration. But all in all, of some of the memories that I have of Mama Claudia is really holding white midwives to the flame to be honest about their role in the erasure or of the obstacles placed in the way of Black women becoming midwives. So she was instrumental in transforming national midwifery organizations to hold a mirror up to themselves to stop being the problem and being in the way of Black midwives. Another thing that her story that I love about her story is she went from being a doula and loving being a doula.
Mm.
She was called to be a doula because one of her providers mentioned it about her demeanor and connected her to do that. But when she worked as a doula, she worked at community health centers, but she loved working with the youth. She had a thing about working with the youth and being that steady listening ear where if they went home and their parents were judging them and they didn't have anyone to talk to, she was there. So she attended pregnancies and births for teenagers. But another thing that she was known for, besides justice and helping to transform and ignite racist systems, she also was a friend to queer people and gay and bi people, especially midwives and clients. So Mama Claudia was a soft, safe home for so many people. And she gave people who felt alone in the world and not seen, she had a way of making them be seen. So I know that in her honor, there are a couple of midwife scholarships. I know you have a scholarship in her honor, and I just want to give honor and space to her work. And I want to finish with just one message that I got from her that says, be louder than your fear, be sweeter than your pain. Keep your promise to our people. Don't stop because they don't see you. Keep birthing because we need you. And baby, put some rum in that cake. Because she loved putting rum cake.
Yes, she did.
So Thank you for allowing me to journey into the oracles and share these beautiful and fearless and resilient stories of our elder and ancestor midwives that have passed on. is is beautiful.
It's truly beautiful. And you did a beautiful job of helping us through that, sharing that way, and honoring them. You use that word so many times, but that is truly what you did and what you've helped us with today. I'm grateful. And as we sort of wrapping up this series of elders, I know for sure our next work will be what I call the baby elders, of which you are one. And, there are so many more of us because that legacy has continued to grow. And we might be a small group, but we are mighty. And we are strengthening and growing a baseline of providers who can serve communities of their own communities authentically, safely, and rebuilding the trust that has been with us for millennia until now. So thank you for joining me here today on the Hands That Caught Us, the Perinatal Pause podcast. And we'll talk again soon.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you again soon, and all the blessings and love, Mama Jennie. Thank you so much.